Gav has the weather next.
The all-new Hyundai Tucson has been acclaimed as a landmark medium SUV.
Well, Gav's on the spot with the latest weather. Here he is now.
Thank you very much, Paul. Southerly moving up the coast throughout today, mostly just drawing in more humidity. It's still been very warm, but it is going to get a little bit cooler with a little bit of wet weather on the way. Eddie Groot, well, he caught just about every sunset colour possible in this spectacular photo looking west from Jimmy's Beach, just near Hawke's Nest. It is God's country around there, or just north of Port Stephens. We've got showers right across central Australia, in over the red centre. We've had some decent storms there, firing up. Big storms there off to the north and throughout parts of Western Australia. All dry for the majority of New South Wales. There was a little bit of drizzle here and there from the southerly that moved on through, just revealing itself, only just a little bit of cloud there along the coast, still really quite hot. That is ex-tropical cyclone Winston spiralling around. Looks like Winston's just going to sit there offshore, and that's going to make sure that the swell peaks throughout tomorrow, because you've got the onshore winds. They'll be building, and therefore the moisture content is going to rise, increased cloud and wet weather on the way throughout tomorrow as that little system moves north. There's another little secondary front that is going to make sure the winds remain quite strong. There's a decent pressure gradient there. That's going to allow all of that swell to jam in up against the east coast. So it's really going to become quite dangerous for most New South Wales beaches. Looking at tomorrow's forecast, still hot in Brisbane. Sydney, it is going to be overcast and wet. That wet weather coming through during the early hours of the morning before it moves north. The capital, the risk of a shower is very small now. Much cooler throughout the southeast, hot in the centre, storms in the north, and the heat is back for Perth. They've had an extraordinarily hot summer. Temperatures today hit the low 30s for just about everyone today. Bit of a scorcher, even up in the tablelands, the high 20s were reached. Further north, also very hot, as I thought last night. Grafton going beyond its forecast maximum, hitting 36 degrees, 35 at Casino. Low 30s were a plenty throughout the northern rivers. Ballina only maxing out at 29 like Tweed Heads. Now, there's our rain for tomorrow. You can see just a little bit. We've got some showers, a burst there, tracking up the mid-north coast and extending further north as we move into the evening. In the northern rivers, you've got some rain on the way during the early part of next week with that cyclone or the remnants of hovering offshore. It's all going to be pushing in from Monday, so we're getting really quite wet from here on in. Looking at the winds out of the southeast, and quite gusty, quite strong. In fact, strong wind warnings have been issued. Cooler but humid, cloudy and showery. Burst of showers coming through. Maybe some little heavy local falls and maybe some storms as well. Some little cells certainly possible. It's just slightly unstable, so particularly around the mountain areas, you might see a little bit of storm action throughout tomorrow. Still very warm and humid for the northern rivers, despite that southeasterly driving through. The southerlies just have not been that cold at all this year. The swell, big, dangerous, up to 3 metres. Bigger in the north. The south is still going to be quite chunky because there's two swells running. You've got the northerly off ex-Winston, and you've got that southerly swell as well. So two dangerous swells gelling together. You've got a low tide there really early at 20 to 6 and the high there at about 10 to 12. And we've got some pretty big tides. Overnight tides. We're going to have coastal erosion on our hands here across the weekend, so be prepared for that if you're on the coast. Sun's up at about 6:35, down at 7:25. That moon now is waning away. Look, it's not looking good for offshore boating. Could not recommend it at all, to be quite honest. Large, dangerous swell, a lot of water moving around, strong rips, currents, choppy seas. We'll have those gusty onshore winds. Protected waters, by far the best, so take care. We've had a number of accidents with people taking on bars when they shouldn't have over the last few weeks. Looking at this long-range forecast, Lismore, northern rivers, we've got rain on the way. We're going to see potentially some decent numbers here as we move into the early part of next week. I think those estimates right there, well, they're probably under towards the coast. You'll be getting some decent falls for all of those coastal communities in between the Tweed down to Coffs. It is going to be really quite wet into the early part of next week. Monday, Tuesday looking particularly wet, so I think everything there is greater than it suggests. Your percentage and chances of rain and also the numbers, I think they'll be quite up there. For Taree, the mid-north coast, you'll have a decent persistent burst of showers move through during tomorrow, and then it's actually going to ease off for the mid-north coast as we move into the early middle part of next week. Surf as well, it's on. Big waves, wind-blown, affected. It's going to be somewhat choppy out there. Water temperatures have still been relatively warm for most locations, but that really sums up the picture there. It's going to be pretty big. It's going to be dangerous, fit surfers, but on the bright side, if you're fit enough and ready to take it on, those big southern point breaks will be offering some epic waves. Need to catch up on a local story? All you have to do is log on.
Thanks, Gav. Finally tonight, hurricane-force winds have produced incredible waves on Hawaii's North Shore for the famed Eddie Aikau Invitational.
Just cool. Plain scary.
Yeah, cowabunga for sure.
Spirit of Eddie lives on.
That is the latest news.
Have a great weekend.
Good night.
Good night.